the Constitution are communicated to young people in a manner that they are able to relate with.
So age appropriate basically means from like 13 to what?
13 to 19.
To 19 thereabouts,
yes.
yeah.
13 to 19 thereabouts. Yeah. But then as you've heard from the people who've been using the book, as much as the book is for 13 to 19-year-olds, there is very little consumption of issues of the law and the Constitution all around, simplification of it. And so I often say there are adult teenagers who are still using the book and finding value in it. So as much as it's written for teenagers, then you have very many other age groups and age sets that are using the book.
Who can still consume this book.
Yes.
I like that. And what's the feedback like from teenagers?
It's been good.
Yeah, what do they say? Yeah, I'm curious.
It has been good. One, because unlike before, like we started earlier in terms of access to information, you get to a point where you realize that they already know what they want. They already know what is required of them as citizens. So it's just giving them the knowledge and the tools and the skills that they need. So you engage young people and they have the knowledge, and then they are even able to engage you on issues of the Constitution. So the feedback has been really positive amongst the teenagers themselves, and even for the adults and the parents and the caregivers, individuals who then have had access to the book. And one thing I also realized that was so encouraging for me was that it's an idea that it's a gap that not only existed in Kenya but in various other spaces.
Talk about that.
You know, so that you have someone talking to you on social media, on Twitter or wherever, and saying, "Oh, I think we really need this in Uganda. I think we need this in Rwanda. I think we need this in Zimbabwe." So I figured it's something that is not so unique to Kenya in terms of not engaging young people in issues, politics, governance, and constitutionalism. I think it's something that cuts across,
especially for African youth.
Especially,
they are so in this day and age, they're so excited about governance, conversation, civic engagements, basically. Exactly. I mean, we saw whatever happened even in West Africa, where they've been toppling governments. You know, they're questioning how money is being used out there. You know, I'm curious, baby. So, is it just Nairobi youth who have access to this book? How have you managed to distribute this book across the country? Because I believe there's many youth who are probably listening to us right now and they would love to have that book. So how do you get to access those guys? So
we're in the process of establishing the structures and systems to get it all out. So at the moment, the book is physically available at the Nuria store at Moi Avenue at Bazaar Plaza, and it has the capacity to do deliveries all across the country. And then we are also using a lot of social media to ensure that the information goes out to as many young people as possible, including to the institutions that work with young people. And then also now ensuring that we have structures at the county level, which we are still developing, so that then we are able to meet the young people as we move along. And perhaps one of the critical aspects or the biggest progress we've made so far is to have the book approved as a reference material by KICD, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development.
Very good stuff.
Right? Yeah. Because initially the challenge I had was without that approval, I was able to use it with the youth groups outside schools and classes, and if I was to take it to educational institutions, I could only do it with the private institutions. But of course, then that again contributes to that disenfranchisement that we are talking about. So now with that approval, then it makes it easier now to take it to schools. So within the CBC curriculum, it gels very well with the social studies for grade 6 and grade 7.
100%.
Yes, you know. So initially
there was a gap.
Initially there was that gap. Initially there was that gap. So my initial thought was, once it has been approved, then now you're assisted and you're helped in taking it everywhere. But turns out now after that it's your own personal objective as well. So that is where I am with my team in terms of now ensuring that the book gets to the schools as it should and gets outside Nairobi as fast and as often as it should.
Correct. 10?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how long did you take you to make a version for teenagers, by the way? Because I'm sure it was a complex thing to do.
It was. I'd give it a whole year.
Okay.
Yeah, because the process is it starts with the idea. in itself, of developing the manuscript. So I shared this with my then supervisors come employers, Professor Yash Gai, Professor Jill Gai, and Waikwa Wanyoike. Then I was at Katiba Institute, and I told them I'd like to do this, and they gave me the encouragement I needed at the time to go ahead. So I took the first 3 months developing the first draft of the manuscript. So you take the constitution, the preamble, you take the chapter by chapter by chapter, and you simplify it, and you also have to conceptualize what the illustrations will be, what kind of language you want to provide, what kind of information, because it can be a whole chapter, but then there are particular areas within that chapter that now speak to the young people. So those are the ones that you make focus, so that then you are speaking to your target audience.
Correct.
So that took about 3 months of research and writing, and then I shared it now for approval with my supervisors. They gave me their feedback. The first draft was all read. Because again, these were individuals who'd written constitutions, who'd been in the space for such a long time, and they'd published books. This was going to be my first one. So the first one came back and it was all read. Change this doesn't read well. Ensure that you've quoted the right articles of the constitution. So again, revising it took another 3 months, right? So then I took it back to them, and it came back with more changes. That's around 7-8 months. By then I was so exhausted.
I can only imagine.
I was so exhausted. Intellectually, physically, also.
That's what it takes. That's what it takes.
Oh, it was so draining. So I gave it space for another 2 months. Just let it stay there. Because writing itself is not easy. And most times for the writers who are listening in, they'll attest that you get to a point where you have something called the writer's block.
Right.
You can't get creative. It doesn't matter what you eat.
Umefika a dead end.
Umefika dead end. Your brain.
Yo, I relate.
You can't. You know? So I think I got to that point with the material and let it rest for about 2 months, just trying to find my way around it, get the motivation to jump in again. And once I was able to go back to writing, I went back, did the editing that I could. Now, remember, that was the internal development of the manuscript. Now, once we'd thought that we had something that we could take out, now we gave it to an editor. And we also gave it to someone within the education system, just to let us know were we on the right track. And they also came in with their different opinions on what needed to be done. And I'm grateful for that giving it that external eye, because it's that process now that helped us change the language to make it more relatable. Because before then, how I'd written it was it wasn't so far away from what the Constitution, the language of the Constitution. But then now, because we shared it with an external person who was working with young people, he came back and told us that what you need to do is to make the language relatable. Use words like, do you understand? Do you know? Do you this and this? So then, because this was something that affected the whole manuscript, all the 150 what pages.
I thought you were going to say use words like. You know, I feel like. You know,
out of curiosity,
by then, like wasn't there by then. Like wasn't there by then. But then now I had to go back to the whole book again and revise it. So I'll give it a whole year of the idea, putting the idea into pen and paper, and ensuring you have a manuscript that can now be developed, that can now be printed out, that can now be published, and you move from there. It's quite a process. Writing is...
you've done a really good job. What were you going to say?
I'm just curious about the language used in writing the guide. Given that it's a book that also you mentioned that you're partnering with schools to reach out to the kids in terms of understanding this. So does that mean it would be available, or it's available in languages that they'd relate more with, say Sheng, or just it's in English just as a book that would be adapted in curriculums?
For now it's available in English, and I believe because that's the do I say instructive or instructional language in schools? Yes, in schools. It's the English and Swahili. Those are the official ones. But now moving forward, I agree and I understand there's need to translate it. There'll be the Sheng version, there'll be the Swahili version,
and also vernacular, I assume.
Vernacular as well. There'll also be Braille, because again, we have to ensure that each and every group is catered to. It also needs to be translated into Braille. It needs to be gamified. It needs to be illustrated.
That's crazy.
It needs
damn, that is so impressive.
That's next level.
That is so impressive.
There's so much,
level.
so much that so much that needs to be done. But at the immediate one will be to translate it to perhaps Swahili, and then to digitize it, and then the Braille, because I think those are the ones that now capture the majority of those that the groups, the vulnerable and marginalized groups that exist. And of course, another challenge with it is that once the book has gone through, you can have the English version that's gone through the evaluation. Whatever it is that again now needs to go to the schools will still need to go through the process of evaluation for now the quality control. So it's a lot of work across board.
Yeah, we will have to give you your flowers. You're doing a very good job. And it's interesting you've mentioned Sheng. Sheng is becoming mainstream.
It has become mainstream. Actually, now used as a language everywhere. Everywhere.
It's interesting. We're living in such an awesome
interesting
era.
Times.
What are some of the concerns that people who've interacted with this book have come up with? Have have raised when they talk to you?
I'd say that the feedback has been largely positive. The concern now has been the reach.
Okay.
And access.
Yeah.
That has been the reach. Those have been the biggest challenges in terms of the reach and the access. And so then that is why now I have to engage in as many. Do I call them marketing and familiarity and publicity activities as I can. Actually posted this on my social media today that after all the gallivanting and I've been doing, there are still a good number of people who don't know about the Teens Guide to the Constitution. Right. So it's very important to keep on messaging, to keep on having
that's motivation for you.
Yeah, that's motivation for me.
Correct.
Now. To keep talking about it, to keep engaging young people with it, and to create as many platforms as possible. Right, so that people can access the book and also engage in its content.
Yeah, can you imagine if we had this book, Sisi Kama Millennials, right, back then? Oh, can you imagine how our civic engagements would have been by now? It would
have been a total game changer, man.
It would have been huge. We would have been questioning everything.
Hey, Sana.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Sana.
So what do you foresee happening in future now that these kids are going to have access to this information? Do you feel like we're going to have more youth getting into governance? I guess even holding the leaders into account. Getting into the political spaces maybe. Is that what you're foreseeing?
That's exactly what I foresee, because the whole idea behind it is to nurture the next generation of leaders and to ensure that we have a wholesome and civically engaged citizenry. And by wholesome, it's not one thing, if you realize, is and perhaps I could start from where I started from, with us being the millennials, where what you learn about politics and governance is a loyalty pledge.
Right.
And then I pledge my loyalty, and on top of that, and on top of that, you're given the milk. And you're given the milk, and you read the was it GSC? And what you're told about government and governance and your country, it's everything nice. And everything sugary.
Everything sugar and spice.
Yes, everything. Everything sugar and spice. And what I've said before is that failure to be given the right knowledge and tools and the skills required for you to exercise your citizenry, it takes away your agency. To question, it takes away your agency to act. It takes away your agency to be active in terms of making decisions for yourself and for your community. So then now, with more education of the generations that are coming, then that will be on the flip side of things. One, they have the knowledge about governance, they have the knowledge about politics, they have the knowledge about leadership, and then they know how to engage, because one of the things that I am witnessing now is there's so much information all around. We are able to give them what they need in terms of the Constitution, even using the Teens Guide to the Constitution, but now what they lack is how to organize.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
It is how to organize. And we've seen that including with the engagements that they've been having, the Gen Z movement. They have the passion, they have some of the knowledge, but then now what the lack is the organizing around the ideas for them to achieve what they need. And that takes time. And requires then for them to be mentored, for them to be given the right, for the right environment to be created for them to thrive in that.
You're very right, because even if you look at how they organized the whole movement, so to speak, it kind of looks very rookie. You know what I mean? So you're very right. This is definitely a step in the right direction. I'm curious, by the way, is this all self-sponsored, this whole process of writing this book?
Kevin.
Yeah. Hey. Talk to me.
When I tell you it's a lot, it's a lot. It's not just the intellectual, it's not just the writing, but it's also been in terms of the printing, in terms of the, doing all that.
I can imagine.
Yes, it's been a lot self-sponsored. And for majority of people, now is when they are knowing about it, that it's out there, but it's something that started in I launched the first edition in 2016.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So between 2016 and today, those number of years, then the amount of time, the amount of effort. But I'm telling myself, I think that season was in preparation for now. Creating those structures, ensuring that now we have something that can be used by the public, and just being personal, even for me, just being in a space where now I can engage in interviews like this and publicize the book and engage in the.
Do you think this is the first of its kind in the market?
It is the first of its kind in the market.
Very impressive.
Because I was about to ask you, you mentioned that not only teenagers interact with the book, also we have Gen Zs currently interacting with the book. Do you have any intentions to partner maybe with the private or even government sector to distribute, maybe even county governments in terms of distribution and more civic engagement about the book?
I am open to as many partnerships as possible and from as many partners and from as many sectors as possible, because it's not just because I can't do everything on my own. It gets to a point where you need other people to help you maximize on that vision or to bring it to fruition, but also because of the philosophy behind the material. The Constitution cuts across all sectors. It cuts across government in terms of governance. It cuts across the private sector. It cuts across NGOs. It cuts across schools, the religious sector as well. So there are partners everywhere. And for me, I'm open to partnerships across board.
I like that. Yeah. Have you got an e-copy of the book?
Yet.
Do you think that's necessary?
In another...
you're the old school. I believe in hard copies.
No,
I'm a reader, man.
Nowadays I'm reading ebooks.
Oh, yeah? I can't.
I find it so cool.
Yeah, me too. I'm just like... And then my eyes and then the blue light. Keep on swiping,
Exactly. I also believe in the hard copy, but again, we are speaking to a generation that prefers screens and easy access. So eventually it will be, even if it's not this fashion, but a totally different fashion, because again, you have to... You'll understand the processes that have gone into this in terms of evaluation, so that you can't have the same product in it's something to do with quality control, if I could say that. So maybe not just this particular version, but trying to find means and ways of ensuring that the material can be accessible to as many people as possible. One of the things I was thinking about is, even if it's not the digital version, is perhaps an audio. An audio on the content,
very creative.
An audio on the contents of the book, because I was told they may not want to do the hard copy, and the digital is also 50-50, but then the audio, where someone is on traffic, they could still also learn about the Constitution. There are also suggestions about a game.
How would that work?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Very interesting. Actually.
But I'm sure, I'm sure there's a concept you can come up with.
Exactly. So there's a lot that can be done. But to answer your question, eventually, yes. Eventually, yes.
Side question. Do you think this generation of teenagers have a reading culture, compared to the previous generations? Do you expect them to read, like to sit down and actually read and, consume and enjoy the book?
They do.
Yeah.
They do on the things that excite them.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it's for everyone else.
Yeah, you think?
It's the same thing we say. You'll find a book on the Constitution. And I'd say that is the reason why perhaps not many people have read the Constitution. Someone will prefer to read these novels. And you find them in traffic and they're reading all these big books, and they have this whole series from book one to book last, because that is what interests them.
Ama Baba will tell us.
Baba
will tell us. I'm sure he'll read that book.
Baba atatuambia.
Exactly. But you see, that is what interests them. And that is what, and it has been packaged to their liking. So it's just finding who the target audience are and packaging the material in a manner that will interest them. So even for that generation, they have a reading culture. In fact, they are more eager to consume information. It's just that the information and the packaging, the material has to be put in a manner that interests them and put in a manner that they are able to consume.
It's amazing. By the way, is this the only book you've written? Is this Ama, you got others?
There's a second one, which I co-authored with about 16 other women. It's called She Leads, Lessons for Women in Leadership. Co-authored by 16 other women across Africa. And we launched it last year, June, July. And it's meant to provide guidance and to amplify the role and the place of women in leadership. So not majority, but all of us who contributed to the coming up of the book are women in leadership positions across varied sectors. So then the approach was, you have one woman talking about an issue that's close to her heart. So you have women who contributed. Out of the 16 women, you have chapters on motherhood as leadership. You have chapters on women as leadership. My personal contribution to the book was on visionary leadership and the role of having vision as a leader, and the role of women in terms of promoting visionary leadership and the role they have in promoting organizations and companies, and even within the family structures. How do you place yourself as a leader and promote visionary leadership within your areas of influence?
I like that. Women empowerment is a conversation that I'm very passionate about, by the way. Do you think we're going to have a woman president anytime soon? At least in this era of ours?
Not in our era.
Really?
Perhaps with the Gen Alpha.
Not even Gen Z.
Not
Gen Z.
With Gen Z, with our era, I don't think that's going to happen. With the Gen Z, they are likely to have more women. An increase in the number of women that we have in terms of leadership, more governors. At least in our time, we got four women governors.
True.
And now perhaps with the Gen Zs, they're going to have more women coming up. And you listen to this through the conversations we are having about women representative positions, for example. And then you can also see that in terms of the societal conversations that we are having. When we have conversations on femicide, when we have conversations on politics, when we have conversations on leadership, and this other controversial one, this one for women empowerment.
Feminism.
Yes, feminism. Feminism. I don't know why it was escaping my mind. So for me, those are often indications of where we are as a society on that issue. What are the young men saying about women leadership? What are their views? What kind of conversations
it's interesting. There's a young man, an influencer, who's got a massive following in Kenya. He says we need to do away with the women rep position. Saying it's not overrepresented. It's not impactful, overly represented. In fact, they're saying some of the women rep leaders that we have aren't really adding value even to women out there. You believe that?
I believe it's a challenge. I will not fault him 100%, because then we have seen that in the public space with the few or some of the women representatives that we have had. The general feeling is that majority of them have fallen short of public expectation as to the role that they were given. But I look at it from two perspectives. One is the role of the seat of the women representative to begin with, because when the seat was created, the idea behind it was to enhance the participation of women in politics. It was not, and it is not necessarily that women elected to the women representative positions are supposed to focus on women issues only. Right, because they go to parliament as any other member of parliament, right? So that already made it very, I don't know if we should use the word disadvantageous to the women who eventually took those positions, because then the public perception of their role was already construed differently. You understand? So then it goes down to an understanding, the public understanding, including of the Gen Zs as they're having their conversation, one as to the philosophy and the idea and the justification for having women representative positions. And if that, once we've understood that, then we'll ask ourselves, has the reason and the idea behind that been resolved? If we needed to enhance women representation in parliament within the political and electoral system, have we achieved that to an extent where now we can say, let us do away with the position?
Correct.
And the second question will be, what is the issue exactly? Is it the people elected to these positions that are the issue, that the public has an issue with, or is it the position itself?
Correct.
Because those are two different things. You can have the position, it's serving its purpose as it should, but then it's the individuals and the personalities placed in those positions that are perhaps not maximizing on the opportunities that they've been given.
100%. I want to ask you as you wrap up this conversation. They say the greatest nation on earth. That's what they talk about America. That's how they refer to America. They're about to get into the elections. The campaigns are going on. Kamala Harris could be the first woman president of the United States. You think it's likely? You think she could?
Is this a safe space?
Very safe.
Very, very safe.
I don't know. I just feel like I need to ask you that question.
Well,
are you even following this whole campaigns?
Partly. Partly I am. But I'm more Trump than...
Really?
Yes.
Why are you not rooting for Kamala?
I'm more...
because of our policies?
I'm more. I'd say if I was in that, if I was in the state or within that space, I think I'd be more conservative than.
Interesting. Okay.
I think there are things that have become too liberal for me. Policies that for me are very disorienting to the social structures that exist.
I feel you, girl.
So I'm more conservative than.
Do you see yourself getting into elective politics at some point?
Sometime in 2017, 2018, when I was engaged in political analysis and I was all over the media, I was nominated by one of the leading political parties as an MP. It happened that I was in the party list. We had 12 names, but the party IBC could only allocate 6 names. My name was number 8, and so that opportunity went like that.
That sucked.
So So had it happened, then perhaps I would have been more engaged in politics. But as time goes by, I think I'd prefer something appointive than elective. I think the elective one is just too murky. And I think as I move along in my career, I realize I'm more of a technocrat than a politician.
Correct. I like that. It's been real. Thank you so much for coming through. That is Sandra Ochola. We'll be talking about her amazing... By the way, where can guys get this book now? Where can we buy this book?
They can get it at Nuria store. It's on Moi Avenue, the Bazaar Plaza. And Nuria Bookstore also has its online platform where they can get... you can always order online and they can organize delivery to your doorstep.
Any contact information in case of maybe partnerships?
Yes. You can reach me on my social media, Ochola Sandra, crossboard, Ochola Sandra on Facebook, Twitter, Ochola Sandra, Instagram, and we can always engage.
Good stuff. Sandra Ochola right there. She's the author of Teen's Guide to the Constitution of Kenya, and she's also a lawyer, and yeah, like anyway, she's a lawyer. I mean, author as well. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for coming through. I've got some Amara and Viri coming through in a bit. What I see. That's a banger, yeah?
Yeah, that's a banger.
And then, of course, we're going to cruise the comments. Nimechikiwa so mid and the conversation.